Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back with day 3 of Clutch Chess, the Champions Showdown. Now, yesterday, I had a very difficult finish, losing my last 2 games to Magnus Carlsen. As such, it's looking unlikely like I can come back and win the tournament, but as I've mentioned in my previous 2 recaps, points today are worth even more than they were worth yesterday. So with every win worth 3 points versus 2 yesterday, if I get red hot, I have a chance to maybe win the event. So, much like the other 2 days, I start out playing the mini match against Fabiano Caruana. In our first game, Fabiano having the white pieces, the game was a very solid draw between the two of us. As such, we're going to pick it up with the second game of our mini match. So, I have the white piece against Fabiano, and I open with the move e4. We get c5, knight f3, e6, and now I play the move c3. We get d5, takes, d4, and now the move knight f6. Now, in the recently concluded Maritime Open in Prince Edward Island, Canada, I played the move bishop to e3 in my final game, which I would go on to win. Against Fabiano, however, I played the move knight to a3, we get knight c6, and now I play the move bishop e3. Fabiano decides to play the move knight g4 here, and this is a slight deviation from the main lines. Now, normally black takes on d4, and after knight b5, black goes queen to d8. If black were to take the bishop after knight c7, it's the classic uh-oh spaghetti-o moment with the classic family fork. So normally black goes queen d8, and after takes, knight d5, bishop d3, takes. This is the standard starting position. In the game, however, Fabiano decides to play the move knight g4 instead, and now I play the move bishop d3, and we get an eventual transposition after takes, knight b5, takes, queen d8, and the move knight takes d4. Fabiano plays bishop d7, and now I play the move queen to e2. Now, the move queen to c2 is also possible in this position to try and spy this pawn on h7 with a AA battery, but ultimately I go to e2 instead. Fabi plays g6, I castle, bishop g7, and now I trade and go for the move h4. Now, this move is probably okay, but I think in retrospect, a move like e4 with the idea of e5 to close the door on this diagonal for the bishop would have made a lot of sense as well. But I decided to play h4 here, trying to attack on the king side, because with black's open queen side here, this king most likely is castling king side. For example, say we get queen c7, h5, and black tries to castle queenside here. After a move like bishop to a6, king b8, and knight g5 here, there's pressure on f7. I have rook h4 and rook b4 to lift the rook, and this black king is very weak. So Fabi plays the move queen to a5. I go bishop c4, guarding the pawn. Perhaps here, knight d2 would have been better, but this is a very computerish line, as I'm simply gambiting a pawn on a2 for what looks like nothing at all. So I go bishop c4, guarding the pawn, we get rook b8, and now I play the move rook to d3. Now, this move is probably imprecise here from me. I think bishop to b3 with the idea of knight to d2 and knight c4, knight e4 would have been better. But remember, this is a rapid / blitz game. You're trying to not fall too far behind on the clock. So I play rook d3, I figure I guard the pawn, I can create the double stack on the file, why not? But as you guys can tell from the valuation bar, this is a mistake. So in this position, Fabi plays move pawn to c5 here, and after he plays this move pawn to c5, black now opens up the scope for the light square bishop. Here I play the move knight g5, and this is simply a bad move, and when I played this move, I had a feeling it wasn't right, but I'm assuming there's going to be a tactic in the position with some kind of sacrifice. What I probably should have done in this position is I should have played the move pawn to h5 here. If I had played the move h5, let's say bishop b5, takes, for example, after takes, and a move like rook to d2 here, white is doing completely fine, as black only has 3 pieces trying to pressure this diagonal and the b pawn. But instead I go knight g5, and Fabi immediately plays bishop b5, and now I take after a very long think. At this point, for whatever reason, I assumed there was going to be some kind of tactic. I really wanted to sack the knight with knight takes pawn here, but black can simply castle the king out of the center, and suddenly the knight is loose, the bishop is loose, and the pawn is loose, and everything is not well placed. However, people are probably wondering, after takes, why can't black take the bishop? Here I have knight to d6, forking the king, and now after takes, queen to a2 and rook d1 here with the double stack, infiltrating, and a kebab on the 7th, black is in bad shape. And if black were to play the move king takes knight, which looks like the obvious move here, I can play queen to f2, king to e7 here. And now after the move queen to f4, suddenly I have threats like queen d6, queen g5, rook d1, and this black king is getting checkmated. Sample line, black takes the bishop. Here I have queen to d6 check, king to f7, and now after rook to f1 checking the king, if the king goes away, I win the game. And if black plays the move bishop to f6 here, I can simply go queen d7, king g8, rook takes f6, and I'm threatening mate in Uno. And after rook to f8 here, I can simply trade and play as move queen c8, king g7, rook d7 check, take the rook, and win the game. But as I mentioned, after knight takes f7 and castles here, white is simply in terrible shape. If I go for bishop takes e6, black is queen to a6, hitting the rook and the bishop here. I actually, for some reason, I thought black could even just take the rook on d3 here, for example, or something else. So I didn't see a good option. If I were to play knight d6 here, after takes, and queen a2, the knight's on pre, there's queen a1 check, and white is just getting crushed. So after spending a lot of time, ultimately I decide to trade the bishops here, but now after queen takes b5, black has a double stack on the file, pressure on the pawn, and I simply don't have any tricks. So I play the move rook d1, Fabi castles, I go queen c2, and now after queen c4 with the weak pawns on a2 and h4, I'm simply losing the game. So I go king b1, Fabi takes, I play knight f3, queen e4, and now I play the move king to a1. Fabi goes c4, I draw back, he takes, and here I play the move knight d4. Now, one very important factor about this game is that because we're playing a game which is blitz, both of us are getting a little bit low on time here. I knew that if I keep the game going, maybe there will be a miracle down the road. So Fabi plays rook b6, I blitz out queen to a4, trying to pressure both the pawns, and now Fabi decides to take and play the move rook b8. Now, this is a big mistake here from Fabi because he spent 2 minutes on bishop takes knight. I actually noticed after about 5 to 10 seconds that Fabiano could sack the rook with rook takes pawn. If I take with the king, there's rook b8 check, and after king c2, queen e4 check. If I go back, there's mate in 1. If I decide to take with the rook on b2, after queen takes pawn, suddenly you see the power of this bishop and the queen on the diagonal. If I play queen takes a7, trying to guard the knight and stop rook to b8 as well here, black can simply play rook d8, and once again, with this awesome fianchetto bishop on g7, black is just going to be completely winning. So Fabi decides to trade. He plays rook b8. Rook takes b2 also would have worked here, but this line a little bit trickier because after check, king c2 and queen f2, rook d2, there's the move queen to f5, and again, it's the same issue with a checkmate. This one, however, a lot harder to see, so Fabi plays rook b8. But now I can play queen takes pawn on a7, and after rook b7, I go check, king g7, and rook to d2. And even though I'm down a pawn in this position here, there are chances for tricks as I can maybe try to attack the king. So we get rook b5, I play queen d8, h5, queen h4, Fabi goes queen c5, and now I play the move rook f1, trying to play queen f6, and rook d8 to checkmate the black king. Fabi plays queen g5, I check, e5, queen f2, queen e7, and now I play the move queen to e2. Fabi goes queen e6, and here I play the move rook d1, we get queen g4, queen e1, rook a5, and here I play the move queen e3. Fabi plays rook b5, I go rook f1, queen e6, and now I play the move rook d1 back. Now at this point, I'm obviously lost, but as you can tell, because Fabiano was so low on time here, I'm trying to put pressure on the clock. So we get queen e7, queen e4, he goes queen c7, and this move is actually a big mistake because now I can play the move g4, eliminating some of the protection in front of the black king. In this position with the pawns and the queen here, for example, on e6, this king is as snug as a bug in a rug. But after queen c7 and g4, we get takes. Suddenly with this open h-file, this king can be easily attacked here, and at this point, I actually thought I would have some chance to maybe win the game. So we get queen b6. I go queen e2 here, trying to stop black from attacking his pawn with the legendary triple stack. And here we get queen e6. I go rook to h1, trying to play on this open h-file. And now we get to move queen f5. Now, as you can tell from the valuation bar, this move is a very, very big mistake because it actually loses the game. Now, I ended up playing this move queen takes c4 after a 15-second think. I should have played queen to h2 here, but I actually missed it after queen to h5, trying to stop the checkmate. Say black goes like, I don't know, e4, there'd be checkmate in 1. If black plays queen h5, queen g2, queen f5, there's a very important move, rook to f2 here, forcing the queen away from this 5th rank, and after queen to e6 and queen to g5, suddenly with the rooks on the f-file and the h-file and the queen infiltrating, black is actually getting checkmated. But I did not see the move rook to f2, so all I thought I could do is go queen h2, queen h5, and then have to make some kind of repetition. That is why I decided to take the pawn on c4 here, because now I figure I can create the double stack with the towers on the h file. I've eliminated pawn on c4, and now I'm free to start pushing my p. So Fabi goes to e4, I play rook h2, and now he plays the move rook to d7. Now, much to my horror here, after rook to d7, I suddenly realized that there actually is no way to checkmate this king, because if I were to play rook h7, king to f8, and say I play check, after king e7, suddenly the black king is very safe here, and black can try to attack on the d file. So I go queen c6, rook d5, I check, I go queen a4 here, trying to stop rook to d1 with the checkmate, and now Fabi correctly pushes e3. Here I go check, king e7, play the move rook e1, queen f3, and now I play the move queen b4. Fabi blocks, I go rook h1, and now we get the move e2. It's worth pointing out, rook to d1 would actually lose the game, because after takes, black is unable to take the rook due to the pin of the king. So Fabi plays e2. Now I play a4 here, trying to create space for the king. We get rook d1, king forward, king f6, and now I play the move queen h4. Fabi plays g5, I check, king f5, and now I play the move queen h7. We get king to e6, here I play queen c2, and now we get the move king d7. I go queen b3, we get queen d5, and here I play the move c4. We get queen d3, check, king c7, and here I play the move queen c5, which loses the game. Now, in this situation with 28 seconds, I probably should have spent a bit more time here, because there is one actual way to survive, which is to sack the rook. The rook takes pawn, because if black were to take the rook on e2 here, I can go rook to h8, trying to checkmate on b8. And after rook to, say, d8, for example, I can simply play rook to h6, rook back, rook to h8, and the game is a draw. Now, make no mistake, this is not an easy line with seconds left on the clock, but it would have saved the game. Instead, I go check, king b7, and now I blunder with this move a5 here, simply forgetting that black can play the move queen b1. Fabi does not miss. He makes a check. I go up, check, king a4, check, king b5. And after rook to b3 here, I resign the game, because after queen b4, black can take. And with the extra queen here, after takes, and queen d2, black will win this rook and win the game due to having too much material. So a very, very unfortunate way to lose this game. Mind you, I was lost out of the opening, so the result I can't be too unhappy with, but I did have my chance to win this game. Now, unfortunately, because the points count for triple today, as such, with this loss, any chance of trying to win the tournament pretty much went out the window, as well as second place. Now, in the meantime, Magnus Carlsen crushed Gukesh in 2 games, so with Magnus winning as well, now I pretty much had to fight for 3rd or 4th place. So now I'm behind Fabiano by 6 points as we move into the second mini-match where I'm playing against Gukesh Domaraj. Now, in the first game against Gukesh, it was a very tough game. Gukesh was pressing me for much of the game. Ultimately, my defenses held up and I was able to draw the game. And this means I'm still leading Gukesh by 1 point in the battle for 3rd and 4th place going to our second game of the mini-match. Now, if this game is decisive, most likely whoever wins this game will finish in 3rd place. So Gukesh has the white pieces, and he opens with the move e4. I play c5, knight f3, and now I play the move g6 once again. Now, I played this hyper-accelerated dragon throughout the 3 days. I basically came into this event deciding I was going to play one system, and so I decided to stick with it, because also, if my opponent surprised me, they show some really brilliant preparation, I will be able to fix these ideas as I move forward into my upcoming tournaments, like the candidates. So we get d4. I take, bishop g7, c4, knight c6, bishop e3, and now I play the move queen b6. Gukesh goes knight b3, I drop back, and here we get the move queen d2. Now I play the move knight to f6. In my game against Fabiano, I believe I played the move d6, and after bishop e2, knight f6, knight c3, knight g4, Fabiano and I fought to a draw in the first game of the day. Instead, I play knight f6, we get knight c3, knight g4, bishop f4, and now I play the move d6. We get h3, I drop back, bishop h6, takes, and here I play the move a5, trying to push my p and harass this knight on b3. Gukesh goes queen e3, I play a4, knight d2, and now I play the move queen a5. Now, I was actually very shocked, so I expected Gukesh to play knight to d4, and after queen b6, it's simply a game of chess. But after knight d2, I had a tough decision, because ultimately I played queen a5, but I was really trying to make this move pawn to e5 work to get a classic bastion with this knight on d4. But ultimately, after after bishop d3, knight d4, and castles here, I saw that Gukesh could play knight b5 or knight f3, and in the long run, white should be much better. So I play queen a5. Gukesh goes bishop e2. I play queen c5 here. And this is a move that, in retrospect, I kind of regret. I thought I probably should either castle or played bishop e6. Both moves are very thematic, but I thought after queen c5 in the trade here, I'm getting a bash with the knight to d4, and I shouldn't be worse. But Gukesh correctly plays f4, knight d4, and now he plays the move king to f2. He does not fall for the classic fork of the king and the rook, so we get king f2. Here I play bishop d7, e5, knight h5, takes, and the move knight e4. I go b6, knight d5, rook b8, and now Gukesh plays the move b3. Now, it's a very awkward situation because I'm down 50 seconds on the clock, and it's very hard to play here because white has these knights in the middle of the board. If I take what looks like a free pawn here after rook to a7, there are all kinds of big threats here with the knight and the rook and the kebab on the 7th, and black is in a world of hurt. So ultimately, I play bishop to f5, we get knight g3, and now I play this move pawn to e6. Now, at this point, what I'm trying to do is I'm down a lot of time on the clock, so I'm trying to look for a way to create counterplay in the position. I'm not really worried about this pawn in the room. I just know I need to do something on the queen side as soon as possible. Now, what's interesting is the computer thinks bishop g6 actually is close to equal here. I did consider this very briefly, but after a move like knight to e2, for example, takes, I thought that it's very hard to play. And with the double pawns, the weaknesses on the queen side, that's great knight, I thought white should be better. Apparently, after h4, white isn't better, but I had to start looking at the situation in terms of quick decisions and quick moves, as I know that if I get too low on time, I will simply lose the game. So I go e6, knight takes bishop, takes, check, king e7, and now Gukesh takes a pawn on h5. Now in this position, I played the move knight d4. Computer actually prefers this move b5 here because after takes, suddenly there's a lot of pressure, maybe an open file, and white is still better, but there are tricks in the position. Instead, I go knight d4, Gukesh drops back, and now I play the move rook a8. I can never trade the pawns here because now the rook on the a file is way too strong. So I go rook a8, we get rook d1, rook d8, and now Gukesh takes the pawn. Now, what I had seen at this point was that even though I've given up both the pawns on the h file, the two juicers, I have some tricks here because after knight c2, rook b1, and a3, I'm trying to go knight b4, win this pawn on a2, and then push my p up the a file. Now, it was very clear to me that Gukesh overlooked this idea because he spends over 1 minute on his next move, and after knight b4 here, he now plays move h4 after spending 2 minutes on the clock. Now, computer wants rook takes rook here, and apparently after rook takes rook and h4 in this position, white is actually close to winning because if I were to take, there's rook a1. If I move the knight, I lose the pawn, and if I try to go for the move rook to a8 here, I believe that now, after rook to a1, rook d8, white can simply push the p up the board, and white is winning. But Gukesh cannot spot the correct tactic. He plays the move h4 after nearly flagging on the clock, and now I'm able to trade and take this pawn on a2. We got h5, knight c3, rook d7, king f8, and as you can tell, suddenly white is lost. Now, I did see the drawing line here with pawn to f5, because if I were to take this pawn here, white can now play the move knight to d5, and after king to f8, for example, knight takes b6, there's knight d7, there's rook a1, and white has chances to save the game. If I were to ignore the pawn and play the obvious looking move knight c3, after check and king f8, white can take here. If I push, I get mated. The king has no squares available. And after pawn takes pawn, white can simply force a draw by repetition. If I go this way, I get checkmated. So I simply have to repeat and go back and forth. But Gukesh instead plays h5, and I think that Gukesh missed the tactic here, because after king f8 and h6, now I can push the pawn to a2. My rook covers the back rank, it covers the queening square and the file as well. And here, white plays knight h7, we get this, and Gukesh misses that after rook takes pawn, I have this in-between move, knight to e4, checking the king and forking the knight here. Without knight e4, if I were to queen, there would be rook h7 with the classic Arabian checkmate. But when I play knight to e4 here, Gukesh has to take, I queen, and now there's no checkmate on h7. So Gukesh goes knight g5, I check, I take, king h5, and now I play the move queen e2. We get king g6, queen to e4, and here Gukesh has to play the move f5. If he were to go king h5, there's check and queen g2 checkmate. King has no escape squares in this position. And if white goes king f6, I simply take the pawn with check, take the knight, and now I have an extra queen on the board. So we get f5, I sack the rook, we get takes, queen takes pawn, check, king h7, check, king g8, king g6, and now I play the move queen g3. Gukesh goes king f6, and here I play the move queen to h4. Now, pawn takes pawn would also have been good enough to win, because if white checks, I sack the queen, and now I simply push my p all the way up the board, I get a new queen, and I win. But I play the move queen to h4, checking the king, attacking the pawn, 90-degree right triangle, Gukesh takes, and now after the move queen to e4, Gukesh resigns because after king to f6 and queen c6 check, if you go back, I win this rook, and now I have an extra queen, and if you go forward to e7, I have queen c7 check, I take the rook, and now with the extra queen, I'm completely winning as well. So I get a very, very big win here against Gukesh. After this win, I now have a 4-point lead over Gukesh in the race to third place. So, in the final match, I'm paired against the 5-time world champion, Magnus Carlsen, who has dominated the event. He beat Gukesh 2-0. He beats Fabiano 2-0. If you add in the 2 wins against me yesterday, Magnus has won his last 6 games. Now, in the first game that we played, it was a very exciting Smith-Morra gambit against my hyper-accelerated dragon. The game would ultimately peter out to a draw. So the situation in the final game is such. I'm trailing Fabiano by 2.5 points in the battle for second or third place. If I win my game, I could temporarily leapfrog Fabiano, assuming he loses. If I draw, I'm ensured. Draw or lose, I'm ensured third place. So with all that in mind, I thought, what should I go for? So I decided to play e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, and now I play the move knight d5. Now this is what is known as the 4 knights game, the quote-unquote Pegasus variation of this. I actually have noticed that the late Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky played this a lot about 6 to 7 months ago in the Champions Chess Tour. He also played it quite frequently in Title Tuesday, and I would actually argue that this should be called the 4 Knights Naroditsky variation. Now, whether that happens or not, who knows, but Daniel played it more than any other top player, and I thought, as this is the final game of the tournament, probably the last chance I'm going to have to use this variation before everybody's completely booked up and knows how to refute it on the spot. Why not play against Magnus as my final tribute? So I play knight to d5. Magnus plays d6, d4, and now we get the move knight takes e4. Now, bishop to g4 is also a move. This was actually played by Gukesh against me yesterday, but Magnus decides to go for the most challenging line with knight takes pawn. I played bishop b5, bishop d7, and now I play the move queen to e2. We get knight f6, and here I play the move bishop g5. Now you'll notice that white has great development. You've got the 2 Bs, the knight, pressure in the center of the board, but as you can tell from the valuation bar, unfortunately, it's not a whole lot. So Magnus goes bishop e7. I take, he takes in this position, and now I take on e5. We get takes, and the move d takes e5. Now, unfortunately, Magnus is finding the best move in spite of the fact that he is out of preparation in the opening. So my attempt to try to trick him with this variation simply has not worked. Now, all the moves that have been played are the top moves. I had actually prepared this yesterday, so everything that Magnus does here is simply best. And this is why when I talk about using variations like this, I will not be able to play this for quite a while, and that's why it feels like the final opportunity to pay tribute to Danya. So we got the mass trades. I take, rook d1, and now Magnus plays the move queen c6. Now, queen to e6 is also a move, but after queen b5, check, takes, and king to e2 here. In this position with black having 2 sets of these towers of powers here, white is actually perhaps a little bit better in the endgame. So Magnus goes queen c6. I castle, we get rook d8, I take, rook d1, and now he goes for king e7. Now, king c8 is also a move that can be played here, but in this position, after queen g4, queen to e6, queen g7, rook d8, takes, and b3. I thought that maybe white has a small chance to play for the advantage in this endgame because black has all these weak pawns. So even though temporarily black has 1 extra pawn, white will win one of them. Instead, Magnus goes for king e7, keeping the king in the middle of the board, going for the traditional bond cloud variation. And now I play the move queen to d3. We get b6, h4, and now Magnus plays the move a5. Now in this position, I play queen to a3, we get king e6, and here I end up making a repetition after checking back and forth. If Magnus were to play queen c5, maybe after takes and rook to d5, perhaps I can try to play for something more, but after a move like rook b8, it's still likely to be a draw. However, I also can go queen to h3 here, swinging the queen back and forth to try and create the kebab. After queen to h3, we probably get queen c6 and repetition. If black were to play rook d8 here, I can trade and go queen f5, hitting both the pawns at the same time. And after king e7 and takes, it's a draw with perfect play, but I do have this outside juicer that I can try to push up the board. But Magnus simply goes back to e6. We make the repetition, and the game ends peacefully in a draw. As such, this means that I finish in third place. Now, Fabiano would draw his final game against Gukesh as well, so even if I had gone crazy and won the game, it would have made no difference overall to the tournament standings. But it is what it is, a very up and down tournament. I didn't feel like I played particularly well throughout this event. I thought I was very shaky, but at the end of the day, the positives are that I didn't play very well, and the only difference between second and third place was really the one game against Fabiano today. Magnus, of course, dominated from start to finish. He gets a clean win in this tournament, showing once again why he is the best player in the world. But for me, it's very mixed, but I'm still happy that I played well today, and I finished in third place when I very easily could have finished in fourth place, or last place, as we like to say. So I finished in third place. Just a quick couple of notes before I go. I like the format. I think having more points accumulating on day 2 and day 3 definitely led to more decisive games. I didn't love the bonus pool of the prize money going to the eventual winner. I think that if they're draws, they're draws. So that's the only sort of critique I have. But I do like this format, and I do hope there are more tournaments that happen with this type of scoring system. So that's going to do it for our recaps here from St. Louis, Missouri of Clutch Chess, the Champions Showdown. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we will be back with more great content in the coming days. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll sign off for St. Louis. See you guys very soon. Bye.